Hi, everyone. This is Kathy Mason and Trina Cooper here today on The Woman's Way. And we're very excited to have you spend this time with us to learn more about how you can run your business in a more loving way. So today we're going to first start by centering a little bit just to get everybody on the same page and breathing. So what I'd like to do is just suggest that you close your eyes for 1 second, get centered, and picture yourself breathing in love and breathing out harmony. Breathe in love again. Breathe out harmony. One more time. Breathe in love. I don't know about you, but my shoulders went down and relaxed. Yeah. So, well, love is all that there is, really. So if you consciously breathe it in, then you can utilize the force of the ethers, that is the unseen, to perpetuate love and harmony. So with that, I want to turn the show over to Trina, and I'll, do you want to speak before I start the slides, or?
Sure. Actually, your intro was great because what we're talking about today is powerful living in balance in this really crazy unbalanced world. And one of the things really is about breathing. It's about centering yourself and getting yourself, in a really calm place. Just like they talk about, the person who stays the calmest is usually the one that drives the energy when things get really crazy. So a crazy person can drive the energy if nobody's calm, but a calm person who's really powerful will drive the energy over people that are really crazy. So again, a lot of this is about energy, and that's what we talk about here. We talk about business. We talk about connecting with people. Some of them are really hard skills. Some of them are soft skills. You need both of them in your business.
Right.
And you need both of them in your life, because without you wouldn't have a business.
Well, and the idea now, I think, is we want to have lack of chaos. And what you're talking about, that calm, you can tell when someone's in fear and operating from that versus operating from love.
Yeah. And we already get too much of the operating in fear thrown at us all the time. Our job is to learn how to balance so that we can live powerfully and we can live from the love, from the service space, not from being panicky, crazy, and all that kind of stuff. So, so we're going to run through. We've got some slides for you today. I've got a little exercise for you today, and we'll just go from there.
Okay. So here's the slide. Oops. Here's the slides. And so again, it's powerful living from balance in an unbalanced world.
Yeah. And again, we call ourselves the Women's Way. And this is for women and men, but there's a lot of women that really, really do need to step up and bring the feminine forward. And the men that step up really need to bring the feminine up in them as well. We picked this name really because we're women and we do it our way.
Well, and I think it's also the time to support each other in it, because the other way has been, you may have had that concept and been nurturing, but you may not have gotten nurtured back. And so this is our chance to help nurture you to show up in love and be supported with that.
Absolutely. So let's go to the first slide.
Okay.
I guess it's number 2. So the question is, how often does it seem that you're pulled one way or another? And in our lives, it's so crazy. It's so ridiculous sometimes that we have family requirements. we have work requirements, we may have other service requirements, volunteer work that we're doing. There may be things that are taxing us that are health related. Or, now there's so many people in that sandwich generation that are both caring for children and caring for older adults. Or you find yourself in a space like I did last year where I was asked to be a guardian of a small child. And one day everything is normal, and the next day I have a small child, which was under a year old. So talk about kind of flipping your world upside down and needing to go and find a new normal and find a new balance. So these kind of things hit us, whether it's a tragedy maybe in our lives, whether it's a project that's all of a sudden come up and dropped in our lap, whether it's a demanding family member or a demanding boss, whatever it is that we're doing, we are always being pulled in 100 different directions. And the thing about living powerfully is you actually running it, not it running you.
Right.
So let's go to the next slide. So those other pictures were a little crazy, people a little stressed out, but isn't this what you really want your life to look at? Wouldn't it be nice to take your office to the beach and be able to sit on a rock and do your work, listening to the ocean waves, or outside on your porch? And more people are finding that this is what they want to do and figuring out a way in this time of technology and in this time of connectedness, which is quite different than what we had before. We really do have an opportunity to drive ourselves and keep ourselves in control and not somebody else. And I'll tell you what, I love being able, especially as an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur really does there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that, but you really do drive your own ship or your own car, your own boat, or whatever it is, but you're driving your business. And so you have to do a lot of things to keep yourself in balance. So let's move on to the next one. So we're talking about balance here. We actually had a gentleman at a center that I run that did this rock balancing. And it's amazing. I mean, he does it up, we're in Colorado, and he does it up Boulder Creek and different places. And he just starts putting all these stones and rocks. And if you look at this, it's like the definition here, balance is a stability of one's mind, of feelings, a condition in which different elements are equal or in the correct proportions. Or it's a harmony of design and proportion. So take a look at that picture. And you see that every one of these things is really, really crazy. It's a different shape, it's a different size. Just like our life, just like our business, we have facets that are completely different. But there's this kind of fulcrum of energy that runs down the center of it. There's a point of balance in everything. And if we learn how to find the point of balance, if we create conditions in our life that make all of these things equal in proportion, that there's this harmony of design in what we do, then we should really feel energized most of the time, not tired. We ought to be able to feed off that energy and not feel sluggish and like we have to go take a nap. And we should be able to move from one thing to another with a clear mind and a really strong focus. And that's what some of the basis is about powerful living, is finding the clear mind, finding that focus, re-energizing yourself in your work. So
I want to share. I think this is such a perfect picture, Trina, because it's uniquely this guy's vision of balance. So everybody can follow a different way of creating their own balance. That's really cool, because if you think about it culturally in the past, historically, you had to follow the same, it's almost a tribal tribal instinct or tribal rules of how everything was done. And now look at how free flowing that is. It's so beautiful. It's
It
wild.
really is.
Who would have thought about this piece?
I know. And some of the art that he does is, I mean, when he did it at our center, when he gave a demonstration, he literally just had this basket of rocks he brought in. And as he was talking about what he was doing, he was just grabbing rocks, and then he'd see how this one fit, and he'd like feel the rock and feel the weight and then put it in until it just stood there, and then he'd grab another one. And it was amazing because he made something that was probably about 3 foot tall.
Wow.
Just rocks balancing on rocks, all different shapes. And it really made me think a lot about life and the balancing that we do, because it does take us time and focus and feeling how this is and how's it going to balance and what do I need to put into it or where do I need to shift it to to make it work for us. Those are all key things. And it's interesting because life will reflect back to us all of these little clues. When we go back out into nature, there's all these little clues
to
look at.
Right.
And even with the leaves, like my husband said to me the other day, well, the flowers, the plants aren't blooming like they were. And I said, well, that's because in this extreme heat, the plant focuses its energy on the roots to keep the plant alive, not in creating flowers. Then when it cools down and stuff, the energy goes back in to create the flowers. But it shifts back and forth because the main focus is to keep yourself alive and keep yourself moving and to keep yourself in balance so that you can create the beauty yourself later on.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an interesting picture to see.
Yeah, well, it makes so much sense that everything that you're going to be saying is a more natural, more simple way of being rather than the constructs that we've created.
And the idea of balance really is, it is a cycle. It is an ebb and flow of things. And so you can expend yourself to a certain degree in one thing, but then you need to pull yourself back to another. And you need to really be able to rock in that and move. And that's important. So let's move to the next one.
Okay.
So here's a girl balancing on a balance beam or a log or something in this photo. And the amount of balance that it takes for you to do that, especially when you think of the gymnasts and the tricks that they do, it is extreme balance. It's building strength. It's learning how to focus. And it's learning how to get a sense or a feel of what works and what doesn't work with you. So in this little talk, we're talking about how to maintain that in your life, how to create that stability in your core. And in a gymnast or a lot of athletes, the core is the main, it's the main focus. It's when you have strength in your core, you can hold everything else. Same thing in your business. When you have strength in your core structures, that's when you can rely on those to hold your balance. Right. And the last part here, the counteracting or neutralizing the energies that weigh on you so that you can remain creative and energized. And there are ways to counteract. When something gets too crazy one way, there's a way to counteract that, to find a little bit of space, even if it's just taking 2 minutes, closing your eyes and breathing. It's that simple to pull yourself back in. But the biggest thing is you've got to be aware of the fact that you're being pulled out, right? That your business is spinning. And it's really easy from the outside for, say, a consultant to walk in and say, oh, well, I see where this is out of whack or that's out of whack or this isn't. Sometimes we're just too close. And sometimes getting a consultant or a coach or a teacher, trainer, something like that is really good. When people want to, I mean, look at the gymnasts, the athletes. They have coaches and trainers that help them get themselves in a place where their core is strong, the rest of them is strong, They learn how to do their focus. They learn how to find the balance.
Right.
They learn tricks. Now, the one thing I know about gymnasts is, especially the women, the girls, as they grow and their bodies change, their center of balance is different. Sometimes they completely lose tricks that they had before, and they have to relearn them and find the balance all over again. Sometimes that happens to us in life. Sometimes it happens to us in our business.
Yeah.
We need to know when to take a step back and to start fresh again, because there's really not any rules that say you have to keep going on the same path. And there's no rules that say you have to keep doing exactly the same thing in your business.
Yeah.
It's like from another talk that I've done about your structure, you create your structures, sometimes you get stuck in them. And the whole point of being an entrepreneur is not getting stuck in structures.
Right.
Always create and find the vision.
Right. And the idea of being in a small business where you can be more flexible, like a gymnast too, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a lot of parallels we can draw to the physical activities, to the natural environment, that also relate to business and just the way we run our lives in general. So let's go to the next one. So the question is, well, what's up? How can you start on a journey of doing this without really kind of looking at what's pulling you? Are there financial issues? Is it time constraint? Are there too many requirements family-wise? Is your diet really, really bad? Things like that. And it's really, these things all take demands on our time and energy. Sometimes they're overwhelming. But what you really need to do first is get a really good reflection of where you are. And that means taking a look at all different pieces of it.
Right.
And being honest, because you can't start and fix and correct and find balance if you aren't honest with yourself. It's kind of like, one of our coaches said, it's kind of like taking a trip from Denver to New York City when you're really starting in Florida. It's like whatever map you create is not going to be accurate, because where you're starting is not what you're planning from.
Right.
So honesty is critical here. It's really, truly critical. And it means on all levels. So let's go to the next slide. So who are you really? And I don't think you're a monkey, but you are a body, you're physical, you are emotional, your mind, you have spirit, and how you are in each one of these makes you uniquely you. Each one of these things has been built out over time through the experiences that you've had and the personality that you came in with. And so let's take a look at those for just a minute. So let's go on to the next slide. So our body is really the physiology of who we are. We're electromagnetic, we're sensory and chemical. It's amazing because our body goes whether we think about it or not.
Right.
It's super efficient. It's got an order about it. If you're getting sick all the time, it means something is out of order and something is out of balance. And you need to be honest with that, because it could have been the food that you've been eating for years and years and years that weakened one of your organs. It could be the smoking that you did that weakened your lungs. It could be not having enough rest, not having enough exercise. There's a lot of different things that will knock this body out of whack. Secondly, we're emotional. That emotional piece of it, it's impacted by our experiences and our beliefs. And this is really important. And now I think finally, personal development is finally starting to tap into the emotional side of things. The emotion code is big. And everyone is realizing that the emotions really drive us, because that stress factor, when we get emotional, that's when sometimes we end up with a lot of different issues that come up. And the emotions that we have directly reflect on what we think and our body, the way it performs, and whether we're sleeping or not, that stress level. So emotions are there really to protect us, and they're to give us signals. They're really there to give us signals, and we need to watch them. We need to become extremely aware. A lot of this is becoming aware of who you are really.
Right.
So the next thing is your mind, and the mind is amazing. It creates both really positive, beautiful creations, and it creates some really troubling ones. It's supposed to protect us, and it's supposed to keep us safe. And it's literally trained over time to do certain things. A lot of what we learn through the mind and body and emotion too, we've learned through modeling. And it really amazed me watching my little grandkids the other day at a football game. They're only 4 and 2, but the reactions that they had were based on what they've seen other people model. So even though they were kind of clueless about what was happening, they were doing exactly the same thing that everybody else was doing. And they were learning a pattern at that point in time that if your team's doing this, you should do this.
Yeah.
And if your team's doing this, then you should do this. In fact, reminding people not to use really nasty language, you really need to tell people not to do, especially around children. So, but our mind works, and we need to learn how to control that. It's supposed to be a servant of ours, not the director of things. So again, being aware of how you're thinking is another step in creating balance in your life. So finally, the other part of us, which is spirit, it's our passions, it's that life force energy, it's the intuition we have, it's our energy levels.
Right.
And who we are connected, like when people pass away, there's literally people who say that they see the light leave. They see the spirit leave. And these are medical professionals that have witnessed this, that have written books about it, that they can literally see that spirit leave, that soul energy, whatever it is. But that energy also is something we can tap into to bring us strength, to bring us wisdom. Again, we need to be aware of the fact that it's there and how to connect in consciously. We're connected unconsciously all the time, but connecting in consciously to draw from it is very, very important, especially if you want to create. Kathy's got something.
I have a question, because when you talk about mind, I know you've done the Joe Dispenza work and other work on mind. So are you talking about the conscious and the subconscious when you're talking about mind, or is mind more the subconscious?
Well, there's mind and brain, and there's the thinking and things that we do. There's actually the brain, that's the organ that helps relay the synapses and things like that. But there's unconscious mind, where we bury things that we really don't want to deal with, but it does have an impact on us if we have fears and things like that, and we don't know where they're coming from. There's the conscious mind, which we operate in on a 24/7 basis if we're awake. And there's the subconscious mind, where a lot of this information is stored. There's also a superconscious mind, where we connect into our higher self, our higher level. But most of the time we're operating between like the subconscious, the conscious, and the unconscious mind. We move back and forth between all those. And the conscious mind, what we want to do is become consciously conscious.
Yeah.
Instead of unconsciously conscious. So,
right. Well, it seems like a lot of the information I'm reading is the ego, the parasympathetic system, which is on fight or flight, is connected to the subconscious slash ego. So those are the animal instincts that trick in with a loud noise or something that gets triggered. And sometimes you don't need those anymore. You know, we may have needed them as cave people, but we don't necessarily need all of it now. And that a lot of times is what's blocking people from really expanding themselves to who they really are.
Absolutely. And different parts of the brain fire depending upon what you're using, where if you're going into more subconscious, higher consciousness, you're going to see the pineal and pituitary glands and things like that, and the frontal lobe fire. Or if you're going into the animal, then it's like the back. It's in the back more that will feed that.
Oh, okay.
So they watch those things. And there was an exercise that we used to do, which was kind of breathing in through the back, which was very interesting. Breathing in through there and then breathing out and imagining the light going through. And it was really raising the energy in the body. It's very interesting.
Oh.
But mind, when we think about it, it's like the mind works in tandem with the brain, and that helps operate the body. Also, the body, like emotions and feelings, will trigger things in the body, which will send messages to the brain, and we'll have certain reactions and things through that too. So yeah, that's a whole other topic for another.
Well, I wanted to get clear on the mind, because I think people use sometimes people use words, and you almost have to qualify what are you using this word for.
Yeah,
there's so many different ways it's used. It's like love, unconditional love. Well, there's a gazillion different definitions for that. So,
and people flip-flop between mind and brain all the time.
Yeah.
You really think about thinking, and when you close your eyes and start thinking thoughts, are the thoughts really inside your head in a brain, or do they just seem to be about? And you know, what a lot of scientists are studying right now is like, where is that memory? Is it located in the body, or is it located in the energy fields around the body?
Yes.
There's a lot of study going on with that, and it can be a combination of both.
Yeah.
But really, the brain itself is an incredible computer processor system that works way faster than any processing system we have.
Right.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, the thing that we really need to remember about all those is every one of them impacts each other. And say if you have a physical injury and a lot of your focus goes on the physical injury, it could completely knock off your emotions, your mind, your spirit, your connections to creativity. If you have an emotional trauma, it's going to have an impact on how you're feeling physically. It's going to have an impact on the way you're thinking, because more than likely your thinking is going to go back to the emotional trauma more often than it is going to be able to focus on thinking something else. And you're certainly not going to be able to, be super creative in things when all you're focusing on is this emotional trauma. Same thing when it's a mental issue and spirit. If you're not connected, if you're not aware of how you are and where it's going and what's going on, these things can completely take you down. Completely take you down. So creating a balance in that is understanding what's being triggered and what can I do to ease that off so that I can get back more into a balance or into a function. And sometimes it's just giving yourself time. And in that case, it's becoming conscious of what you need to do. If you need to be sad, spend time being sad. If you have an injury to take care that you need to take care of the injury. And don't dismiss it, like dive into it. That's one of the ways of dealing with it, is just dive into it and come out the other end. And that's one way of creating balance. But dismissing it, it still keeps coming back. So It's not like reliving it, but it's being in touch with what's going on.
Yeah.
And this particular slide shows kind of a correlation between the physical, emotional, and mental and spiritual in a person as it relates if you had a business. So the body would be all the operations and the assets and that kind of piece of your business, where let's say you've got a business that relies on deliveries. If your truck's down, your business is stopped. You're not going to work on all these other pieces of your business unless until you go get your truck fixed, because everything's come to a grinding halt. The emotional side of a business is like the culture and the communication. And if you end up having major issues between employees, or your culture communication is down, if you're not communicating, your business is going to, again, come to a grinding halt. You need to take your awareness and go and deal with that issue so that it's resolved, so that you can continue with the rest. And a lot of times it means you've got to be balanced in being aware of what else is going on in your business or what else is going on in your life. And you may have to jump over there for a minute to do something and come back. But your main focus goes to that thing that you need to fix, create, find balance in again. On the mental side, it's the same thing. It's the planning side of things and the procedures. And if those aren't outlined, your business can come to a grinding halt. And then also on the spiritual side of a business would be the passion, the mission, the vision, the dreams. And if those things aren't in place or they're not communicated properly, you'd have people working with you going in 100 directions. And it's not going to sustain it either. So each of these are critical. And in order to be really powerful in living and in running your business, you need to be aware of the facets first. You need to be really honest about what's going on. And you need to deal with the emergencies as they come and not lose sight of the other pieces of who you are or what your business is. Kathy, do you have anything you want to add with that?
I really like this slide. I really find so much value in people realizing that the correlation between themselves as the leader and their business. Because I used to say when I first started my business that a lot of companies were like families, where the owner was the daddy or the mommy, and whatever things that seemed to be dysfunctional in that family were also in the company. And so if you realize that it comes from this person being balanced and being aware of their own values and their feelings, and then building a team that also has these same values and passions and missions, it's a new game. The old paradigm was the owner or the top manager ruled with fear. This new game is it's built on a team with love, where every single person is a value-added being, but the leader has to come from this balance of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, or the business can't have that kind of a structure. It won't have that temperament. Let's put it that way.
And what I'm seeing when people do things now, where it used to be they would draw like a square box, and they'd have different quadrants, and they'd say these are the different pieces. Now everything is coming more circular and intersecting. So it's almost like it's creating a flower of life or something when they do all the little bubbles, put them together. But they're really showing that each one of these pieces interacts with the other piece. And while the communication may jump out big, the other ones are still all there, and they're all touching each other.
Right.
All intermixing with each other. So that's kind of it's like we do all interconnect on all these levels all the time. And one of the keys is to become aware and recognize that this is going on and come from that place, not being oblivious to it.
I want to add one other thing. I think that the other reason why it's so good that you have this slide is that you have multi-generations working in a company now. When we were growing up, there was only maybe 2 generations working in a company, but now you can have up to 4. And if the leader isn't balanced, that's difficult, because the paradigm, the worldview of these 4 different generations of life, of their values and their priorities, is so uniquely different, but valuable, so valuable. But the leader has to be aligned and able to help bring that gift out.
Oh, communication styles especially. Every generation has a different communication style. It's like, huh? Yeah. And the next generation is going to be, the up and coming is going to be different as well.
Right.
But if you have multi-generations working with you and you're the leader of your business, you need to understand how to communicate on all those levels, or have somebody who's close to you that understands how you communicate, that can communicate on levels. Have a lot of trust in them. But and we're seeing more and more of that, where it can actually damage a business. And, for instance, we moved, we have an event business that we do, and we actually moved hotels after 5 years of being in one, because our salespeople changed, and the communication, not only the way that we communicate, which is we like to do face-to-face, that is how we related to them for the 5 years. But when it came up to renew a contract again, there was a new salesperson that came in, and all he liked to do was text things and send stuff email. And he didn't like the phone conversations, and he didn't like the face-to-face stuff so much. And he frustrated the heck out of our whole team, and we couldn't get what we needed. And he didn't turn in a proposal that for the bid, and his manager finally called us the day that the bid was due and said, "Can you give me an extension?" And we were like, "No, it's been out there for 2 months." And he wasn't even aware of the fact, because that employee had not communicated to him in a way that he was used to receiving. So it's very interesting. What you need to recognize, especially in business, how your clients, and you can call them big C's and little C's. Big C's, your clients that you're serving outside, that you're actually providing services to, and your little C's could be your employees, and they're like clients of yours too. Both of them. You need to understand how they communicate. Extremely important. Right. Or you will have a major unbalance in your business because of that.
Right. And the without that, there's no joy either.
No.
I mean, it's not just the balance part of it. This whole subject is, how do you basically get to work and have joy too? Get to do your job and find your purpose, right? And if all these things are out of balance, it's really hard. You're in this emotional swing. You're always putting fires out. You can't hit your goals because there's too much drama.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, yeah.
So the whole idea of this is, you're not living powerfully if you're living in the drama.
Right.
You live powerfully when you command the drama and you remove the drama.
Right.
So
right.
That's really important.
Right.
Let's go to the next, because this kind of leads into it.
Okay.
So it's a dance of energy. The whole thing is a dance of energy. And you need to be able to take the time in yourself in your business, to sit back every once in a while and reflect on that and really look at it and see how the people's energy is around you or in the situations. Or like when I started shifting from really kind of being behind the scenes in business and behind the scenes, more support person, stepping into a lead, the relationship of the energy between us, the relationship, because this dance of energy is a relational one, and we relate to everything. And so the way I was and the energy I was putting in now was different than what they were used to, which completely upset the balance that they had. And so it's like working on, it's like relearning new steps in a dance. It's like taking on a new partner and having to learn all about that partner. And a lot of this is beginning to understand the energy relationship between you, between your clients, between yourself personally even. You've really got to look at yourself personally, because if you're beating yourself up all the time, you're going to have a really beat up life.
Right, right. Well, could you speak to boundaries at all with this, Trina, or will you be speaking to boundaries?
I didn't put that in, but I'd be happy to, because boundaries are something that are really healthy. It's just that when you set a boundary, you need to be really clear with yourself and with everybody else what the boundary is. And some people, they don't, and they get into relationships that are quite harmful or dangerous because they don't know what boundaries, they don't know what they want. And there was a program we worked with that had to do with manifesting. Well, how do you manifest something that you want if you don't really know what it is?
Right.
Sometimes the easiest way to do it is to step back and look at what you don't want, what you don't like, what's out of balance, and not put a ton of energy in it. Just like I said, reflect on it, write it down. And one of the tools was write those things down, draw a line down the middle of your paper, write them down on one side, and then on the other side, write what you want it to be, or how you're going to change it, or what it looks like. Mostly what it looks like, because that center line is that change from the one to the other. So if you're in a place where you've always let somebody kind of walk all over you and you've decided, well, I'm setting my boundary now, this is not going to happen anymore. If you don't create a discussion or a dialogue about that, and you just come in and say, no, I'm not going to take it anymore, the energy blows up.
Right, right.
Because you've got the boundaries that have been set previously, and you're doing new ones now. If you go at it where you say, okay, this is how it is, I'm not happy here, this is what I would like to do to create this. But you really need to know where you started and where you're ending so that you can tell them how you want to create it. And setting boundaries for yourself in all these things is really important, because what you're going for in creating balance for you is that focus. It's a clarity and it's a focus, and it's being able to pull it all back to that place so that you're the most productive. And if you don't set the boundaries, I mean, I know both of us have had the challenges with people just kind of coming in and saying, hey, I need this done.
Well, or I have boundaries is a big lesson for me in my life, and also wanting to get an A+ on my projects in my business. So I pride myself that if I said I do 3 things, I give them 4. But then they'll ask for 6. And then I'm like, ooh, that's out of contract. That's, so that's all I'm saying. I think it is a dance of energy. And I think you're right. The communication is the key to success in that.
Well, and you hit on something because you were creating expectations where the expectation that was created was that you always deliver more. So when you always deliver more, which I think is awesome in business, is to, but it's always deliver what you promise and
surprise them with more.
You can surprise them with more, but you say, you need to explain to them that that was your choice.
Right.
And that you had a little extra time, you thought this would look good, whatever it was. Because otherwise, you're setting this.
I know, and I do it a lot. So this is a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, because otherwise you're setting that expectation.
I do it a lot.
I always do extra. That's the way they read it. She always does extra. So I'm just going to tell her, these are the extra things that I want. Throw in.
I mean, I was thinking yesterday about that I should put a table together and say, this is what the contract said, and this is what I delivered. And that way they could, because they don't know. They don't know all the extra stuff that went into doing things, because I make it look easy and I don't, yeah. So anyway, it's just my learning. Thanks.
Well, we used to have a menu. We created a menu in our cleaning company that we had that said, here's what we do. Here's some extras. And those little extras right there were kind of like, we can negotiate them into the contract.
The a la carte menu.
Yeah. Or we would say, we'll throw these into the contract. Or we'll say, this is how much it is to have these things, depending upon negotiations or whatever. And then there were all these other added things that they could pick and choose from and add to it. But the thing is, when it goes back to the boundaries and the expectations, when you're setting boundaries, you're setting expectations at the same time.
Right.
People expect things. And when you're setting expectations, you're setting the boundaries that they perceive as well. So you've got to be really, really clear. And that's clarity in the boundaries and expectations is really important.
Yeah, I think I learned that when I've gone past it more than while I'm doing it. So I've been doing this for 19 years. I'm still learning it. Oh, well.
And it's not a terrible thing for people to ask. It's just, you got to be able to say, no, that's not part of this, or no, I'm not.
Oh, yes, I can do that, but that's $500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's your choice.
Yeah.
That's your choice. That's part of the conversation and the relationship.
Yeah. Yep.
Super important.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next slide. We'll keep going.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're going to run over just a little bit for those that have joined us, because we got started a little bit late on this too, about 15, 20 minutes late. So here's some of the things that I want to cover on how you balance. And this is like you personally, but we can also relate it to the business. So 1, everything is choice. 2, change your perspective. And I'm going to touch on these a little bit more in detail. So I'm just running through. First things first, take care of yourself first. Own it, take responsibility. Play 100%. If you don't like it, change it. Make lists, manage time. And number 10 is breathe and be mindful. So let's go to the next slide. Everything is choice. When you realize that making a choice and not making a choice is making a choice, then you have power. But you need to know when you don't choose, then you're letting the world choose for you. And you don't know exactly how to deal with that sometimes. So everything you do, from the time you wake up till the time you go to sleep at night, you're constantly choosing all day long. And recognize in yourself those choices and choose for you. Now, if you're choosing in your life that you want your life to be in service, then the choices you may make for you is to be in service here, is to be in service there, is to be in service there. It doesn't mean being dragged into service where someone else is choosing that you should be in service and you don't do your boundaries. So if you just go along with them, you've made a choice to go along with them.
Right.
You may not be happy. You may regret a choice, not choosing. But a lot of this is learning how to say yes or no, or this works or it doesn't, and not to blindly move around in life. And just like they always say, take care of, in the airplane, put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
You could choose to put the oxygen mask on somebody else, and you might pass out because there's no oxygen.
Right.
But you can help a lot more people if you're conscious. So everything's a choice. That's something that you really have to watch all the time. Don't go unconscious in this. The second thing is change your perspective. So you can keep a grumpy way of looking at something and things will look terrible. You can look at the world through rose-colored glasses and everything could be rosy and beautiful, but you may not be too grounded in the things that are going on. But if it's not working for you, you kind of have those choices. Keep it the same way. You can make it a totally different change, or you can simply change your perspective. And I'll give you an example. Like, I've been doing books for years and taxes and things like that. I'm kind of tired of doing it. So my choices are, I can totally get rid of it and hire somebody else to do pieces of it. Or I can go to another, and go the other route. I can be grumpy, I can hire somebody. Or in the middle, I can simply say, you know what, this is really beneficial. When I do this, I'm actually serving my company, I'm serving my customers, I'm creating more abundance. There's a lot of different things. And with that, it's a change of perspective. From looking at it as something horrible that I have to do to something that's like, well, it's just part of what I do, or it's something that I'm really exceptional at and I'm giving my gift to people. So especially when you're in a place of feeling really grouchy about something, look at the idea of changing your perspective on it.
Right.
And if you can't find a different perspective that suits you, then maybe you need to let it go and make a change. But changing your perspective on something, especially the perspective of everything is a lesson. And even when rough things happen, there's a lesson in it. And go with the lesson. Don't dwell on the rough stuff that's happened. Dwell on the lesson.
Right.
It's incredibly powerful.
Right. Right.
I think you had a question in the chat.
Let's see. No. Oh, wait, maybe I do. Let's see. Karma external situations do not have much available choice except with my own interiority.
Yeah, taking it inside and changing your perspective.
Yeah, that's true.
Whether it's karma, whether you want to call it karma, call it an accident, something that's going on, you really have to look at it and say, oh, what's the lesson in this?
Did you, I don't remember if you wanted to talk about Kellen's book, the Book of Context here, but do you remember his book?
Yeah.
Because that I thought was fantastic. Kellen Fluckinger is a coach that both Trina and I use, and neither one of us are in his program right now, but he's wonderful. And he had 3 near-death experiences where the angels kept coming to him saying, you sure you really want to stay? You sure you really want to stay? And he said, yes, 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 yes. And then when he came out of being in the hospital, he right away wrote 2 books. And one of them was called is called The Book of Context. and it's all about changing your perspective and flipping it from a lot of people and a lot of constructs say, you know, yin and yang, like go from the fear to love. And then some people go to the middle, go to peace, you know, where everything is, go to the center. What he was saying is that the only way to get out of the problems you may have or the stinking thinking you have is to go to the far other side. And that's changing your perspective, but he calls it the book of context. So you change the context. So what if this was really good, the thing that you thought was really bad, like his near-death experience, which had to be terribly painful and debilitating. But in the long run, he's looking not for the middle ground, but the far right, which was the gift, the benefit of it. And I love that book. I think it's brilliant what he's
I
doing.
do too, because, you know, we really do, if we can simply look and say, okay, we got a gift of a fabulous situation, or we got a gift from a not so fabulous situation. And the gift is always the lesson. If you can simply turn it to the lesson and what can you pull out of this, and you look at life as a journey of learning, then the tough things you can kind of ponder and say, well, that's interesting. And especially if you are from the perspective of I create my own reality, then you dive in and own what's created. And it's very powerful because you aren't a victim anymore. You're a creator. And you end up creating something out of that situation by changing your perspective on it, taking it as a lesson, and where do I go from here with it?
She said, Ruth said, yeah, what if your soul actually karmically is okay with exactly what is, even if you are a victim?
You know, some people choose that. Some people choose to be the victim and they're good with that. And they don't necessarily, maybe they just want to experience something like that.
I'm going to unmute Ruth, so because Ruth just got a diagnosis that she's cancer-free today.
Oh, good.
Congratulations, Ruth.
Hi.
Hi, dear.
Hi.
Hi, sweetie. Yeah, I get a lot of criticism for feeling an injustice, a personal injustice. And, you know, I'm just naming it. And I'm cancer-free, you know, I mean, that's an upside, but not to dismiss that it's got a very that when I step into the experience, it's got a really complicated bunch of thought forms, and most of them aren't even mine. You know, and so it keeps me stepping a little spiritually bypassing it or something. And yet that doesn't work either, because the more you resist it, the more it's sticky in with you. You know, so it's not like just clean, okay, this is focus, this is not focus. You know, because this is hard stuff to go through. And when you really look at it, it's because I used to hate calling it this, but because I see karmic as a whole parallel reality, but it's just got so much karma in it. There's so much karma. What if on a soul level, this is exactly the way it is? Yeah, you know, you don't have to suffer about it, and you don't have to not name it. You just have to go, this is what I'm experiencing. It's very, very difficult. And I don't feel like that there doesn't feel like there's much available choice. You know, this is just, wow, okay, this is, I turned 68, yes, 2 days ago.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. So it comes along with kind of an initiation. I never said that before or thought it before, but it comes along with an initiation into eldership.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, I never even looked at it that way until just this moment, because it's hard for me to say, what if on a soul level, karmically, you're okay with where my life is, you know, that it's okay.
And the people who seem to flourish are the people that seem to flourish are the ones that name it and claim it, and then they work with it, however they need to work with it, whatever it is. Instead of going over the tragedies or whatever, it's changing the perspective and saying, okay, so this came on somewhere on a soul level. My soul's okay with this. This is something that, you know, I chose to deal with, or whatever it is. So if I chose to deal with it, what can I get out of it? And what can I share with other people about it?
Yeah, exactly. I get that. If it isn't a loud screaming call to become a public speaker, I don't know what is. you know, because I get that piece that there's, but I have to chunk it down so small, because a lot of it, the external, is super bad. I don't know what else to call it. It's like there's this whole it's a very complex. It's very complex. It just is, and I don't have a positionality in it, and so I'm excluded from it, and a lot of victim stuff comes up around it.
But you're doing so much better, my goodness.
And I'm doing so much better. And when I explain it to people that aren't into New Age stuff, they go, well, of course, because you are the victim. Yeah, you know, they don't even see why that word has such bad connotations. And it actually doesn't. It's a archetype. You know, why can't we say that word, you know?
Well,
I'm not saying I have to identify with it.
No.
You know, I don't have to attach to it. I don't have to identify with it. I don't have to put my positionality in it. But this has got a huge injustice going on. You know, and
what's interesting is that other people have their stuff, which they start reflecting on you. And the thing about the mind, like we talked about before, is that, you know, the mind and emotions are all caught up in the old experiences that we have. So the brain patterns, the mind patterns, and the neural networks that have been created over time are dealing with this shift. And so continuing to look at what's the lesson, what can I get out of this? Mm-hmm. You know, what is it I can bring forward from this? And really diving into that and asking the questions. It's not jumping out of it and ignoring. It's going in and saying, and nitpicking those little pieces that pop up and go, okay, why did that thought show up? And why is that tumbling around? And playing with it a little bit, and then coming up with the positive or the moving forward in the future kind of a thing. What do I want to do with that? Do I want to stay with this, or do I want to move out of it? Because you're going to retrain your brain to think differently. Because right now, it's thinking in patterns, and all these other people are actually saying to you, oh yeah, you should feel this way. Oh yeah, this is, and especially those who haven't studied a lot, you know, they'll.
Well, and it's people who are hurting for me. I mean,
yeah,
no, it's not done without thought at all. You know, these are people who,
they love you.
Yeah, they love me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it pretty much collapsed everything. And like today, for the first time, I'm just staying with a little baby step you know, but I realized right as is, I
It's
could
7
just
o'clock.
get a YouTube channel and go through, this is how you change your life. And right as is, right as falling apart. You know, and like Kathy said, and if you would have started this 4 years ago, it'd be interesting too.
Right,
You
right.
know,
But
rather than say, I'm going to wait until I'm strong and I have to like go get, you know, a hotel room or, you know, like I don't have to do any of that. I could start right as it is and start teaching people, this is how you get through this stuff. You know,
right.
because I'm vulnerable as shit. You know, it's got to speak to somebody out there. You know, as far as like they are too, and they want to, and maybe not as strong as I am.
Right. Well, you can guide people through the quagmire so that they don't have to go through the same things you did.
Well, it's got just even the age thing. It's elder medical care. Just the age thing alone. Like, how many baby boomers do you know? Well, I don't know. Everybody I know. you know. I mean, it's just like, wow. I didn't see. And I'm a trained golfer, and I've been trained by Carolyn Mace. I've been, you know, I have expertise that I'm just not just a, you know, crazy lady out there trying to survive. You know, like I'm not.
No, you're not.
Not everybody has the energetic skill to show you this is where I am, and you can shift it.
Right, right. Well, you can show them the path to wellness. That's the thing. I mean, you use your journey as a asset for other people.
Well, and what holds me back, like then I get this idea, right? The idea is great. And then what holds me back is I'm vulnerable, and the size of this problem and the complexity is like got, you know, it pulls me in. I'm the patient or the vulnerable one in this size. And I'm not saying everybody isn't in it. I'm just saying I'm the excluded positionality of the patient.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, that's like a, you know, that's that, and you know, and just allow that to be, that's what I am. And that's what we are, you know, like, and of course that's scary as shit too. But you know, but I'm just saying, like, it's really weird that the therapy that I usually found resourceful got ruined in it too. Has a gazillion complexities that are, these are all like big deals. These are all like, oh my God, you know, and we're not even in 2020 yet. Yeah, you know, this isn't something that's going to go away this week.
Right, right. Wow.
And for me,
every one of us needs to find our voice.
Medical. It doesn't go away ever for me. You know, it's my medical now. All my medical is investigators now.
Well, and now it's like our job is to take the things that we know and find our voice and share with people from our personal experiences how to move through things, or how to look at something different, because science is showing that those that keep visualizing the health tend to overcome diseases. And people that call out and say, this is what I am. I'm not this, I'm this. They create that in their lives, and they heal themselves. And no matter how crazy some people think you are, it works, because that's how we create our lives in the first place. Some people will go, oh my God, I'm sick, I'm dying, I'm gonna die, and guess what happens? And other people will go, well, you know what? I took this on. I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to move through it, and I'm healthy. I'm totally healthy. And I just move this obstacle. And
even more generic than that. So I don't, you know, it's good to talk this out loud, because I realize I could just start now where I am.
mm-hmm.
Even more generic than that, that wouldn't get me caught so like, this is awfully complex, is that this is how a person creates resiliency. End of story. Whatever you're dealing with, you can't go in there slamming your mind chatter about what's like going to tear it apart. You have to keep that vision, and you have to have it. Most people have to have it in their bodies, you know, and I've got all that. Like, all I need to do is get a camera and show them, like, this is me in Iraq. And this, you know, what do I have to lose? Like nothing to lose. Like, this has really interrupted my life and everybody I knows, you know, so there's nothing, and I'm not saying that it's not scary as shit. I'm just saying that, it's got so much karma in it that it's like Kathy said, stagmired in this, like, nobody really seems to be shifting any of it. It just keeps getting worse. It's a zero, what do they call it? Zero game play or whatever, you know?
Well, maybe that's why you came, is you're here to disrupt the downward spiral. And
the downward spiral. I mean, yeah. even the people that are involved, that, like, you know, they could benefit from it. You know, like, because I don't.
Well, I think you have like a book or a presentation that's called something like, "This is the road to resiliency."
Yeah, more generic. Exactly. Leave the medical out. Just go like, hey, is your life a mess? You can palpate when I change to a positive thing, as everybody can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and some people are more animated than others.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, you know, and I'm not like writing the book, you know, I'll come back in a decade, Kathy, and I'll go, well, I still was going to write that book. You know, I just will.
Well,
let's keep moving through this,
okay.
because maybe it'll give you some more ideas. And I appreciate your input and
thank you,
the thoughts that you have.
Well, yeah, now you know, like, what I'm thinking is, like, a lot of us just need to start. You know, I'm not at the stage where people aren't helping me enough because I haven't even started.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm only 68. You know, I mean, that's how I feel. There's a real, like, one of the gifts about aging is you get it. If you don't do it, it ain't happening.
That's right. And talking about it or thinking about doing it tomorrow, oops, better not do that too many times.
So the next slide that I have up here, it talks a little bit about how to change a perspective in business, and it probably relates a little bit personally too, especially in creating things. But these were 5 ways to flow with the go of business, and where they used to say, keep your value proposition in sight at all times, which sounds so cold. A way to look at it instead is what you focus on expands. Another one is focus on your customers, not your competition. And this says the experiences you create between your brand and your customer, guaranteed business. So each one of these, like, keep pushing the boundaries. And in this case, your business grows at the end of your comfort zone.
Yep.
So each of these talks about a change of perspective, a way of looking at it, moving from these hard, rigid ways into flow. Think big, don't stagnate, but instead You and your business are a part of a bigger picture. Believe. And that goes for us personally. We're part of a bigger picture. We need to believe in what we're getting and we need to bring it forward.
Yeah.
And then finally, challenges are discussed, opportunities, investigate. And in this case, when we're mindful, we see more there than what appears to be. So it's turning that mindful vision onto a situation, no matter how challenging it is. Instead of sort of, the first one seemed to cut things and just say, you know, stop what you're doing and do this, where these things are more flowing in that, oh, this is going on. Well, let's turn it in this direction, or let's turn it in that direction. And we see a challenge sometimes in that with the people that think. Right now I'm working with a group of young people who are, and I call them young because I'm in my 60s and they're in their 30s. And they're creating a project called Nomadic Peace Caravan, where they're going to actually walk from Nelson, British Columbia, down into the Baja in Mexico with the idea of peace. And they want to talk to city leaders for proclamations of peace and different things like that, recognizing the environment and the importance of caring for things. And we're literally training them to speak in these more rigid ways of thinking, because that's how the people they're addressing on city councils and in governments and things think, where they think in a very flowy, very positive, impactful way. But when they talk the way they talk, kind of like Marianne Williamson, they get poo-pooed as crazy people.
Right.
And we're teaching them how to speak the other language so that they can communicate. And that can be quite the challenge.
And that's kind of a complex way of saying we're not using our whole brain.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, that's what you're up against. You're up against, like, you're only using half your brain. And they're calling me crazy and they're only using half their brain.
And the thing
No,
is,
I'm kidding. There's all sorts of jokes you can make about this that are so true. You laugh off your chair.
Well, they're in their own boxes of belief, and you need to be able to open up those boxes for them to hear you.
Right.
And so one of the easiest ways is to find that languaging and to learn some yourself, so that when it comes to you with a certain something, and you can think of the things that they're saying and what triggers you or whatever, and it's like, what would be a way to respond back that they would understand? And because, I mean, I love what Marianne Williamson is doing in bringing forward the love, but press is taking everything she's saying like she's crazy. And I know she's opening up a box, and I know that she's cracking into all of this, because I've heard it on the news where when something horrible like the shooting started, the anchors would say something like, well, maybe we all should think like Marianne Williamson, because it's based in love. It's not based in retaliation or whatever. So all of us are cracking through, and it's a way she's going head on.
Yeah, we're all cracking through.
And we're all cracking through.
Thing I've heard in a long time. We're all cracking through this.
Yeah.
We are. We're all cracking through it. And a lot of the thinking that got like, this is such a big deal, is most of them aren't even using their whole brains. I mean, they just aren't.
Well, none of us are
conditioned to that. None of them. You know, like isn't that interesting that it's up against, you know, that this is who we have as president. I mean, it's like, these are all symptoms of what, if we don't change, then we made a choice. Then we also made a choice.
Right,
If we
right.
don't.
And bringing it into balance and bringing into clarity and focus what we want. The next slide that we have talks about first things first. And this one, I love this story because it's out of a book by Stephen Covey. And the story that he told was about the important things in your life. And he talked about being in a room and having jars with like rocks in them and sand, you know, smaller pebbles and sand and water, and then this big empty jar. And so he puts in all of the rocks into the jar and he asks the people, is this full? And someone said, yes. And he goes, are you sure? And he pours in the pebbles up to the top. They fall in around the rocks. And he goes, is it full now? And they say, yeah, it's full now. And he goes, are you sure? So
Yes.
then he pours the sand in, and they're starting to catch on now, saying, no, it's not. And then he pours water into it till it comes to the top, and he goes, is it full now? And they said, yes. And he goes, you're right, it is. And what's the moral of this story? And one of the students says, you can always fit more in. And he said, no, it's put the big things in first. So if you want to create balance in your life, if you want to live really powerfully from the place that you are, decide on what your big things are and schedule that time in every day to work on the big things. And if family is important, and there's no rules around this, because every one of us is unique. If family is important, that may be a big thing. If your business is important, that may be a big thing. You just need to be able to identify what the big things are, make sure you put them in your life, because it's guaranteed that all your other little spaces are going to get filled up with stuff. But you need to make sure that you put those in, because then you're going to feel like you're accomplishing things, like you're not spinning your wheels. You're not going to feel stressed. If you give yourself that time, you give yourself permission to work on those things that really matter to you. And that'll create the balance and the focus. So the next slide is a little bit of a takeoff of this, which is take care of yourself first. And again, that's going back to that old adage about putting the oxygen mask on. Because if you don't care for you, if you let yourself get run down, if you are facing a crisis and you don't care for yourself and you don't give yourself a little time off, whether you choose to meditate, whether you choose to soak in a bathtub, whether you choose to just go for a walk, eat healthy, each one of these areas, the physical, the emotional, the mind, and the spirit, if you can put in one thing for you every day where you're eating healthy and mindful of the food you're taking in, if you are being careful, like if you're feeling yourself getting emotional, you take a little time out to breathe and calm yourself down. In order to deal with the mind, sometimes the mind is so crazy that it will, it'll just repeat and repeat and repeat. Sometimes you just need to put on some music so that you divert your mind from this constant thought process, or maybe use mantras or chants or something that's going to divert the mind from one thing to another. And then spiritually, plan that time in for yourself spiritually. I think you put up a little post about caring for the care, or
yeah, that's what
it's very, very important. And that will help you energize. But if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to run yourself down. And science already shows what stress does to the body and how it ages you and how all the organs deteriorate, how physically you just go downhill, and mentally as well. I mean, some of these stress diseases and autoimmune diseases come on because we're constantly keeping ourselves in these states of stress. So plan the time in every day. And then if you notice yourself spinning out on any of those levels, say, okay, I need 2 minutes. Put yourself in timeout. I mean, really, that's what you do. When the kid's acting up, you put them in timeout because you need to divert them from the pattern of what was going on. Grandmother Parrish always used stop change. And we would set up a buddy that would catch us if we would go into a negative or have issues where we gave them permission to say, stop, change. And just that little thing broke us out of the pattern that we were in. And it was like, oh, because sometimes you don't see yourself going into it.
That's good.
That care is good. Next one. We talked about this a little bit already. Own it and take responsibility. Responsibility is responding with ability. But you can't respond with ability if you don't know what you're responding to. So first, own it. Just like you said, Ruth, it's like name it and claim it. Because if you can sit there and say, this is going on and I'm dealing with it, then that's a first step instead of pushing it away and not handling it, not going into it, because that's when things spin out of control. So whatever it is, get honest with yourself and just own it and take responsibility. And you'll see that it blows through, no matter how it is. I always say everything is perfect just the way it is. From moment to moment, it's perfect just the way it is. And if I'm starting to feel troubled by something because it doesn't resonate with me, the energy isn't resonating with me, then I go, oh, I should change this. But it's perfect, even if it doesn't resonate, it's perfect the way it is because it's showing me that that's how I don't want it.
Right.
So owning it and claiming it. The next one is about playing at 100%. And sometimes it's super frustrating and stressful for us when we don't play at 100%. And I've heard people go, well, I can multitask. Well, can you play at 100% multitasking? Or can you switch your attention that fast that you're at 100% doing this, and then you switch 100% and you can switch 100%? Well, you can train yourself to get that way. It can be tiring, but when you're an entrepreneur, like for instance, today we're packing for a show. I had my focus on one thing I needed to get done, and I was getting bombarded with questions and problems and things. I had to be able to switch, hold my focus, but I had to be able to switch and give my attention to the thing that came up and switch back, and then switch and go back. Always cognizant of the time. And when it became like too much or something, I would say, I need to finish this. I'll talk to you at this time. And set my boundaries and move it. But you've got to learn your skills on how you can play at 100%. You may be really good at multitasking. I think women are pretty good at that, especially if you've been mothers and you've had to keep an ear open for distress signals or whatever and still cook dinner or whatever. It is, I mean, you are, but think about it in your mind. You're switching to I'm listening to I'm cooking. I'm doing this to this. And you may just switch quickly. But it's impossible for your mind to track too many things at one time or two things at one time. It really is focused on one. So you can teach yourself how to switch. But it's it can be a challenge and it takes a lot of focus to do it. And you've noticed that when you're 100% on, you accomplish so much. So the best thing to do is get rid of the diversionary things around you, set time specifically for something. And when the time is up, go, one of the things Kellen taught us too was a 50-10, was in an hour, you can work for 50 minutes and then take 10 minutes. The 10 minutes can be to relax. Yeah.
I've got my little timers.
It can be to relax. It can be to take a walk. It can be returning phone calls, whatever you want that 10 minutes to be. But when you're on, you may want to do 30-30. You may want to say, I'm working on this for 30 minutes, and then the next 30 minutes, I'm going to do this. But it really has to do with playing 100% with 100% focus on what you need to get done. And when you do, you're going to feel really great. The next slide is, if you don't like it, change it. And sometimes things are a little out of our control, but in most cases, a lot of things, if we don't like it, we change it. And when my husband, when he had a staph infection, and the doctors were telling him he was dying, and they were telling me he was dying, he didn't like one of the nurses that came in and told him he was dying. Because he said, I'm not going to get well if you keep telling me that I'm dying. And so he said, if you can't come in here and tell me something good, and you can't tell me that if I do this, this is something you suggest I do or something like that, then don't bother coming in at all and go find me another nurse. He literally had 2 of them removed from handling his care because he said, I don't want to hear this. And he had made up his mind he was going to recover, he was going to get better, and as he told his doctor, I am goal driven. Give me a list of things I need to accomplish. And the doctor gave it to him and said, it will take you 2 weeks to do this. And he said, it won't. Don't tell me that again. And he accomplished them in 2 days. And they couldn't believe it. But it's this, if you don't like it, then figure out what it is that you do want, that you do like, and make a change. I think a lot of us sit in that place of things being the way they are, and we don't have the courage and the guts to make the change. And the other thing is the mind likes us to be in a comfortable place, even if it's not good for us, because it's familiar, and it's safe if it's familiar. And stepping out and taking a risk, even when we're moving, that's why so many people stay in abusive relationships and have issues. It's because that's the safe and familiar, even if you get beat up in the process. Because it's too scary to think about stepping out of it. And so it does take determination, but on the long run, it makes things turn around and things switch. And there's no rule that says if it's not working, you can't change it again. I learned from my son, who said, I will not be defeated. I will try this. If it doesn't work, I will try this. If it doesn't work, I will try this. And so many great inventors, so many people who have accomplished a lot in the world had so many failures behind them before they actually had their success. And my son, with that determination, went from starting a business from scratch and selling it 6 years later for $429 million. That is not someone that sticks in the same old mode. That's somebody who says, this isn't working, I need to change it. This isn't working, I need to change it. Here's what I see, this is working, I'm keeping that one. We'll build that out more. So that helps you create balance and power in your life, making those decisions and choices. The next thing is make lists. Nothing is worse than trying to remember everything in your head. It's really stressy and you forget about things. Keep a list. Whether you have a planner or whatever it is that you want to use, keep your list. And I know my husband uses just a pad of paper, and he writes down the things he needs to accomplish, and he crosses them out when he gets them done. And the next day he flips to the next page and carries it over and adds his stuff and keeps going like that. But he can take it out of his head. And that relieves so much stress when you just make the list of what you need to accomplish and you keep going back to the list. And even if you schedule that time, the next one is about, managing time, the next slide. And
Ruth wrote, go to the restaurant, and if there is nothing on the menu, go to another restaurant that has what you want.
oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or go to a restaurant and they're not paying attention to you and you don't like it, leave. There's no rule that says you have to stay at the table.
Yeah.
I mean, this is about us making choices for us so that we can provide what our sole purpose is. And as long as we're doing everything everyone else is choosing for us, we're not going to get that done. And we're going to feel frustrated and completely out of balance doing that. So this last slide, this one is about managing your time. Just like making the list, schedule things. Schedule yourself time to do your personal stuff, time to take your walks, time for your self-care. Just block them out on your schedule. Just like you have an appointment with someone else, have an appointment with yourself. And it's okay to schedule a whole day to just work on a project. That's fine too, if that's what you want to do. But manage your time, learn how to say no. And it's always nice. It's like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now. I'm working on this, but I'd be happy to get together with you at this time, or I'd be happy to call you back at this time. And that's that setting boundary thing again. This is a really big setting boundary thing, is scheduling the time. And finally, breathe and be mindful. Science is proving again that mindfulness, defined as present moment awareness, is so beneficial to reducing stress levels. Whether it's just simply breathing in and out and focusing on the breath for a couple minutes, or whether it's actually focusing on something. But mindfulness is a state of active, open attention on the present. So when you're mindful, you observe your thoughts and feelings from a distance without judging them, good or bad. And that's a huge key in this, is that when you see yourself spinning out, step away from yourself and notice that you're spinning out. And see what you're thinking and what you're feeling and examine that. Go to the questions. Ask, why am I doing this? Where is this coming from? Who's speaking? You know, what's it trying to tell me? Whatever the questions are that pop in your mind. And instead of letting your life pass by you, mindfulness means living in the moment and awakening to an experience. So being mindful, aware of what's going on in situations, especially in yourself, will definitely help you reduce the stress, find answers. And that's simply taking a couple minutes and looking at a situation, stepping out of it, being an observer. And the way that I was taught to become an observer, the way it was described to me, was if you go to a movie and you're watching the movie and you're totally into the movie, your emotions get caught up in it. Sometimes your fists are clenched. Sometimes you can feel the stress in your body. Sometimes you're overwhelmed in joy or overwhelmed in sadness. Each one of these emotions kicks in when you're so into the movie and you're having the experience. But if you walked into a movie as a critic and you were watching the drama play out, but you were listening to the score, you were watching the acting, you were looking at the scenes, you were looking at the script writing,
Different experience.
That takes you out as an observer, and you can do the exact same thing with stuff going on in your life. Instead of being completely caught up in it, take a breath, step back a little bit, and then play that through and look at what's going on in the drama that's going on. You'll get a lot of insights, and it'll get you back into the present moment. It'll help you decide what your next choices are and where to move to. So this was a little exercise that I threw in, just breathing, and it's 4 breaths. And I know we've gone way over with this, but I'll just finish out what we're doing. So in this particular exercise, what you want to do is sit and close your eyes and just breathe. And just notice the coolness of the breath coming in and the warmth going out. And then you want to bring your awareness to your physical body and just scan the body as you're breathing. And notice there's no right or wrong way. You can start at your feet and go up. You can go from the head going down, whichever way you want to do it. But breathe. Just notice any tension, and any tension you have, just breathe into it. Let it just drain out of your body. And then take in a deep breath and let it out through the mouth. And just notice your whole physical body relaxing. The next breath is with the emotions. So we're going to breathe into the emotions. Just notice how you're feeling. And just imagine the emotions being like ripples on a pond, like the breeze blowing over it. And all of these interact with the water and create a little choppiness. So as you breathe, just imagine the emotions becoming calm, the water becoming calm and still, until you can peer down into the water and see the clarity all the way to the bottom. And just take in a deep breath and let your emotions just drain out and become perfectly calm and still. The next breath deals with the mind. So noticing the chatter in the mind, the thoughts that are there, and imagine your mind as a room with all these thoughts floating around in it. And as you look across the room, you see an open door. And next to it, a butterfly net or a broom or something that can help you catch all these thoughts. And as you're breathing, just scoop up all these thoughts and push them out the door until you look about and there's no thoughts anymore. Just pull the door closed and take in a deep breath and let it out. And just notice the quiet stillness in the mind. That empty room. And then the last breath, we're going to create an alignment between our body and our emotions and our mind and our spirit, our soul, our passion, that true essence of who we are. So just imagine everything lining up and this golden beam of light coming down. And as it comes down, it aligns the body and it aligns the emotions and it aligns the mind and the spirit. And if you can't see it, just imagine it occurring. Just know it occurs. And take in a deep breath. And just feel that centered alignment in you. And then begin to notice your breath again. And when you're ready, take in a breath and open your eyes.
Wonderful.
And when you practice this, and you practice it regularly, you can literally take in one breath. I mean, you could do this at a stoplight. You just take in one breath and relax the physical body. Take in another breath. Calm the emotions. Take in another breath. Quiet that mind. And take in a fourth breath and create that alignment in yourself again. And then go back to work. So that one's one of my favorite things to do. And here's some other tools. It's actually a poster that I hang up in a health and wellness booth that I have. And it talks about creating balance for healthy living and being stress-free. It talks about mindfulness, being positive, enjoying life, clear focus, meditating, have enough sleep, relax, unplug, play. Take some time to play and slow down. Eat healthy, drink water, add spices. Spice up your life a little with spices. They're very good for you. Fruits and veggies, go organic, exercise daily, walk, stretch, go outside and move that body. And use the breath, the breathing for body care, oxygenate, cleanse. Oh, do a cleanse every so often. It resets your body. Protect it. There's a bit on meditation and also oxygenating your body. There's foods that help bring in oxygen to the body. Disease can't live when your body's oxygenated and when there's a lack of sugar. Disease loves sugar. When there isn't stress, if you bring that yourself back into balance and your body into balance, the body will heal itself. And it takes on things because something has allowed it to. So working on these, the biggest thing is stress-free. Do what you can to be stress-free. So the last couple slides are about how we run on stories. And we create stories in our mind all the time. And sometimes they go on and on and on, and we repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. But really, who creates the stories? We.
Yeah.
And you have to own that. I create my own stories. So you do, and you create them in your life, and you create them in your business, and you create the unbalance or balance by the story that you create in your mind. So make sure that whatever the story is that's rolling around in there is the one that you want, not the one that's just popping up. The next slide says, and what does the story create? It creates everything. It creates flow or stress, joy and abundance or lack. Your stories create everything. And Ruth is just adding, and you create the stress through your
story or not.
And then finally, the last one here is, so what can you do to powerfully live in balance? First off, change your story so you can change your life, so you can create the balance that you seek. You decide, you choose, you decide, you live it, You think, do, and be. That's really what we do. And so from that, we just have really great gratitude for you being with us. Shatter that structure, shatter the old paradigms, create what you want in your life. Yes, choose free, choose stress-free stories. Exactly.
Perfect.
And then this is just a great appreciation for all of you from Kathy and I. This last slide is my contact information, Trina Cooper at Truly Live Consciously, Journeys for Conscious Living. I have several different businesses, but, and my phone, and then also Kathy from Mason Works Marketing and all the wonderful things that she produces, the books, the products, the media, all the things that she brings forward. So thank you again so much, and appreciate what you added tonight, Ruth, as well. Kathy, do you have anything you want to add at the end?
No, I think this is wonderful. This is so important to get a wonderful refresher and reminder on what you can do to be empowered to live a joyful, happy, healthy life. And that's what this is, a great reminder of great, easy to do. Not, you don't have to be an expert to start. It's really wonderful. Thank you, Trina, so much.
There was a wonderful story that I heard long, long time ago, and it was about actually a monk being chased by a tiger. And he's running, and he goes off the edge of a cliff, and he grabs a branch, and right in front of him on this little ledge is a strawberry. Now, he knows he would have been mauled by the tiger, and he made the choice to jump. And he knows if he lets go of the branch, he's more than likely going to die off this cliff. But he takes the moment to look at the strawberry and to pick the strawberry and to savor the strawberry as one of the most delightful times in his life. So even when things crazy are happening to us, we can still make our choices. And the stories we create, we can either get super upset over them and just say, oh, well, it is what it is, and we move on.
Well, I think time helps you do that too. I don't think, I mean, when you're in it, like what Ruth just went through and what I went through end of last year, when you're in it, people can tell you those things, but you can't experience them right at home.
Because you've got to retrain the brain.
Right, right.
And you do have to give yourself time. It's diving in, making your choices, diving in, getting what you can out of the experience, because you come out bigger and you come out better when you take what you can from experiences, good or bad.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, thank you so much. And thank you, Ruth, for coming. And we'll see everyone again soon. And it's complex PTSD is what she said.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Well, see you next month.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.